Hi, I'm Blake Rayhans.
And I'm Stacie Mallon.
And you are listening to the Optimized AF podcast.
We know life is hard. We're here to make it simple.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Optimized AF podcast. I am Blake.
And I am Stacie.
Do you like how I switched it up there a little bit on the intro?
You did. You almost really screwed me up.
What the hell's going on?
Oh, always keeping me on my toes.
That's right. You know what?
So today is a day we're going to talk about intentional self-care. The title of this episode is Sacred Self-Care, Unapologetic Boundaries. And
unapologetically me living my best life.
That's right.
Hashtag zero fucks to get.
That's
no,
right.
I'm just kidding.
Hashtag boundaries. That'll be the hashtag here. And I think, we've talked a lot in the last few episodes about the state of the state that we're in today and how things are migrating, again, because we migrated into a status with everybody working from home. Now we're coming out of the other side to some degree, but we're not, I don't think everyone's ever going to be back to where it was before. Some people will go back into the office, others will have a blended. So all of that to say, self-care has been a topic of discussion over the last year. And we wanted to take the opportunity to pause and say, if you have developed things that work for you as in self-care over the last year, and you found things that work for you, be unapologetic about holding on to those things. Because if you're now going to be commuting back into the office and the kids are going to be, are back in school, or whatever is happening in your world and your life, it's going to be very tempting to slip back in to where we were. And I'll say this, I had a conversation with Tom Frank, who I think we're going to have back on again.
Yeah, you might remember him from season 1, How Spicy Do You Like Your Chang Sauce episode. So go back and listen to that. Tom's an amazing storyteller, has a lot of experience, and we'll be back again.
Yes, and he always pings me and then I call him, and I want to set aside time to talk to Tom because it's never a 2-minute conversation. And I love that about him. And he was talking about a phenomenon that is happening that he's watching and seeing, which is organizations have done with less. And now things are moving back in a growth-oriented direction. And he's not seeing organizations add back to teams and staff the way that they were prior. So sort of the mindset being, well, we made do with less people, so we'll continue to make do. And that's not what this episode is about, but what this episode is focused on is the world around you is out of your control. What your employer does is out of your control. What you're in control of is holding very sacred your own space and your own care.
I think let's pause and rewind a little bit right now. I want to define what we mean by unapologetic.
Yeah.
Apologies, in most cases, we start to think about involving another person. I'm apologizing to someone for something that I've done. I've wronged them. I've fallen short of their expectations. You could go on in the list, right? My definition of being unapologetic in my sacred self-care is an apology to myself. I'm not going to get into a space of apologizing for the things that I know I need for me. But that also doesn't mean that I'm going to go out of my way to project that onto other people and force them to comply with whatever. I'm going to wrap. I love, again, we titled this very intentionally of sacred, because to hold something so sacred means that you've bubble wrapped it. You've put the other things that need to be around the thing. So follow me through this for a second, right? I've got the sacred self-care habit and routine that I do for me. To hold that thing so sacred and protect it means that I have taken ownership over doing the necessary things around it, that I don't allow things to detract, right? So what am I really saying there then? Is that I'm not saying I do this one thing for me and everybody else needs to be aware of it. You all need to know about it and you need to not get in my way, and I will steamroll anybody that gets in the way of this thing. I don't think that ownership belongs to them. That ownership belongs to me, and I need to take the unapologetic to myself that I've taken this thing and I've wrapped it in what I need to hold it sacred. I don't know if you see that differently.
I don't see it differently. I think you're absolutely right. And let me talk to all my ladies.
My ladies.
My ladies, my moms especially.
It's not a Beyonce song.
No.
Okay.
Ladies. I don't know what's that song's in my head.
We got car karaoke on the way here and on the way back.
Women are infamous for what you just talked about, which is the martyrdom syndrome of, I had these children, I gave up everything for them, and now I can't go to the gym or I can't take care of myself because A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Mm-hmm. And so I think this cuts both ways when it comes to being a mom specifically, and even a dad. Like you do a lot of the heavy lifting in your home related to your children being younger and childcare and getting them to and from. And it's easy to slip into victimhood as a parent and talk about the fact that we give everything to our children. And you and I have discussed this before. If we are protecting our own self-care, ultimately we show up as better parents for our children. So yes, it is a balance. Mm-hmm. I get up earlier, and I always have since my kids were younger, and I work out in the morning. They're asleep. It doesn't disrupt their schedule, and it's my time to myself, and I do hold it very, very sacred. So it is finding the balance of both. I also don't go on social media every morning in the quest for validation that I'm up at 5:15 in the morning, but social media is not a vehicle for validation. And it's become that. So I will say that, again, it's I don't want to make it complicated, and I know we're trying to make it simple, but what I think you're trying to say, what I hear you saying, Blake, is this is for yourself. Holding this sacred is an agreement that you have in trusting yourself that you're going to hold this time that you need, and finding and defining what self-care means for you and what creates energy and balance for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've even said this on a previous episode. Maybe we haven't, but being selfless and being a giver and providing to others the attention focus is actually one of the most selfish things that you can give to yourself. Pause for a second. Does that even make sense to people when you hear that? To be selfless is very selfish. What does that mean? So if you listen to this pod, what do you think that actually means? What are you gaining? Selfishness, I am getting by being such a giver. Everything.
This is deep, people.
So
pay attention, because this is something that I think a lot of people will say. They give and give and give and give. But what are you getting
so much
out of it?
So fucking much. I'm just going to say it like that because you are. Here's the thing, though. You are only able to give to others if you are intentionally giving to yourself. We talk about this all the time. And you are such a great friend and partner in giving me the check-in all the time of reminding me, Blake, you do a lot. Mm-hmm. You need to pause for a moment and need to remember to do for you. And I need that, and I thank you for that all the time, because it is so key to check in with yourself and remember that you are your best. You are at your best for others when you have intentionally taken the time to acknowledge what you need for you. And this goes back to the episode of sacred self-care. Through the last year, I have yet to have a conversation. So I don't know anybody that's in my circle that I communicate with on a regular basis that in the last year has not come up with something new in their life or a new variant of something they did before. Don't let those things go as we somewhat come out of this thing. I mean, I think we're at that point. You're listening to this. You've probably had a round or two of the vaccine. Maybe you might be.
You went out to dinner.
Yeah, you
went
out to dinner. You might be living here in Arizona where our mask mandate is lifted. You might be in another state where it's not. There's all these things, but we're right in that we're right on the fence there of where things are starting to shift and change. So let's pretend we fast forward another 3 to 6 months and things really kind of feel and operate like they did back in January of 2019. Okay, sounds great, but don't give up the things that you've discovered about yourself in this last year, things that really fill your bucket and give you, really, it was a necessity in 2020. I think we realized a lot of people had to do these things. And that's the beautiful thing about being human and how we evolved, that when you're forced into a situation that is unknown to you, that provides you an opportunity to evolve and grow. And I really want to be intentional in how you listen to that. It provided an opportunity to evolve and to grow and to innovate. That is how we as a species that's how we are where we're at today. I mean, we were not banging rocks together and sticks and trying to create fire for the first time. You needed certain things. You needed warmth and comfort and security and all these things through the years, and that we evolve because we are adaptable.
Yep.
But when you've adapted to a situation, don't recoil back and lose sight of the things that you've added that bring a lot of value to your life.
Here's the mindset shift that I had a couple of weeks ago with, I was talking to one of the kids, and I said, what if that was the point of 2020? What if God, your creator, your maker, the universe, fill in the blank for yourself. What if God brought us 2020 in order to slow us down? What if this came into our world and our life and to teach us what we needed to create our own self-care and to define that? And if you understand that, and if that's your mindset, how sacred would you hold the lessons that you learned? I think more sacred than you would if you viewed it as an obstacle to overcome and move past. Like that was just, okay, like that's over, let's move on. Hold on to the lessons that you learned about the connection to your family. Hold on to the lessons that you learned about how to help your partner find their own self-care and hold that sacred. Hold on to the lessons that we learned about taking breaks in our day and how intentional that should be and what that looks like. Hold sacred doing a walking meeting as a one-on-one because it feels good for you and it feels good for the person that you're talking to. Really define for yourself what self-care looked like in 2020, what you tended to go back to and hold on to, if that was journaling, which we've talked about before, if that was meditation, if that was physical movement, if that was drinking a gallon of water. This is something that I started in the start of COVID, and it got away from me, and I started to recognize, when did I feel my best? When do I feel my best? And that's the exercise that I think we want to leave you with on this episode, and why we wanted to do this kind of short, quick hit today is I find that people are starting to migrate back to old habits. Yes. And we would just encourage you to shift your mindset to the whole point of 2020 was to teach us what we had lost. And it always reminds me of stories, I don't want to get super biblical, but in the Bible about the Tower of Babel, and where the world sort of devolved in the Bible into this place where it was ugly and it was not connected to one another, and all those things. And so I feel like this was a shot across the bow to say you're losing yourself. You're losing yourself and the humanity of why we're here as human beings. We have lost touch with the fact that we are hurting our earth. We have lost touch, and we're just moving and activating so fast all the time. It was an intentional timeout that was created in order to teach us lessons. So what are the lessons?
Yeah. I absolutely agree with that. I think that if you're looking at the last year and you have yet to really identify a silver lining, I know it sounds hard, right? I've lost family members, extended family members. Thankfully, nobody in my inner immediate family, but extended family members. I know friends that have lost family members, and I know, I've just known people who've gotten really sick, and it's been a really tough, whether it was a few days or a week. We talk about job loss. We talk about all these things that are labeled as hardships, and they're losses, and they can have negative. But if you're yet to really find the benefits that have come from this, the silver lining that you can take from this, then I just encourage you to think more deeply about a bigger picture and then how those lessons have altered the way that you look at life now going forward, and the things that you fill your days with, and the people that you fill your days with. So we're going to talk about an episode about that, specifically to the inner circle that bring or take from your life.
And if you've lost someone close to you, and I lost my aunt to COVID, and I'll say this, and it just came to mind when you said that, and the mindset shift. What would my Aunt Terry want me to take from this? She did not survive, her battle with COVID, and those losses should not be in vain to how we need to evolve our life. So I think it's just a more powerful reminder. If you did lose someone in the last year, that you should have more gravity on how you should walk away from the lessons that we've learned. So I know this was not intended to be a heavy episode, but just a reminder to pause and really transcribe for yourself the lessons and hold sacred those self-care habits that you developed or had somewhere along the way. Bring them back to center and really instill them in your life.
Yep. And I can't stress enough that when you identify what that is, bubble wrap it. Right? We talk about sacred self-care. You're protecting it. The thing itself, it needs to be protected. So whatever that means for you, I want to give you that visual to leave you with, because that's the action from this episode. Is once you identify what those things are, put the necessary things around it that make it unapologetic, that give you the power and the ability to not apologize for the thing that you need. And sometimes I'll tell you the kind of the secret to this is acknowledging to someone else why you need it. What does that thing give to you that then allows you to be a better giver also? So that might for you be your spouse. You need something. You need that 10 minutes and you need that to do X, Y, Z, and tell them this gives me A and allows me to do B. And that brings more to this family and to our relationship. And I need your support. I need you to be my bubble wrap so that I can have this thing to be my better self, so I can be better for you and everybody else. Now that's just one example. Take that from this episode. That might apply to you. If you're not married, obviously it doesn't apply to you from the spouse perspective. It might apply to you at work with your boss, right? But just take that as an example, as something that you need to really possibly even take action on.
And we'll leave you with that action item and ensure that you're instilling this as part of your life. And until next week, we hope you have a beautiful and blessed and kind and connected rest of your week. Hey guys, thanks for listening to our show. You can find Blake and I on social media channels at Blake Rayhans and at Stacie Mallon.
Be sure to follow Optimized AF on Instagram and rate and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes. See you next time.